Good afternoon, everybody. As always, my name is JC, and welcome to my channel, Everyman's Thoughts. In today's video, we're going to talk about some newly released images and news surrounding the show. There are no spoilers, but there is some speculation, so you've been warned. With that, let's get started. The first thing I want to talk about this week is the upcoming edition of Empire Magazine. This month's magazine will be released as some sort of three-piece collector's edition set. Although the interior contents of the magazine will be the same, there will be 3 unique covers, each with a different picture related to Rings of Power. There's also a 4th subscriber-only edition that features cover art of a frost troll from noted Lord of the Rings artist John Howe. Unfortunately, the full online version of the article is behind a paywall, but the abbreviated online free version mentions articles with most of the higher level people involved in the show, including both showrunners, some producers, and most of the lead actors. As far as what's in the actual article, I'm reasonably certain it's mostly just fluff. You know, things like, what's it like to reimagine Tolkien, or what's it like to play Galadriel? In truth, if there was anything here groundbreaking or something that Amazon wanted to make sure you knew, they would make sure it was available free online, like they did with Vanity Fair, and not behind a paywall. Although we can't review the article itself, we can break down the pictures that are available. And unfortunately, it looks like the Amazon marketing department stumbled once again. The first picture we have is of Morfydd Clark as Galadriel. This is easily the best picture of the 3. For me, it strikes the right tone as, say, a complicated, nuanced show that takes itself seriously and something an adult might want to watch. A lot of fans are going to object to warrior Galadriel because that's certainly not how she's portrayed in the books. I've made videos in the past talking about how younger Galadriel was aggressive, self-serving, maybe even arrogant, and I wanted to see that side of her. But maybe a warrior's taking a little too far. I'm going to give the show a watch before I make my final judgment. Next, we have the picture of Durin IV and Princess Disa. I am absolutely not a photography expert, but something just seems off with this picture because this production quality looks like Saturday afternoon television. Also, I'm sorry, but dwarven women have beards. I know the argument against that, but for me, that's just people who are bending over backwards to give Amazon a free pass. Finally, since we are going to be talking about Nerdrotic shortly, there are going to be fans who object to people living underground having darker skin tones, especially since that's not how they were described in the books. The last picture is the worst of the 3 and just absolutely buffoonish. Again, I sincerely hope there's some form of camera effect or something that is making these pictures look more ridiculous than they really are, because not only does this look like Saturday morning television, it looks like Saturday morning children's television. I don't even want to look at this anymore, so let's move on. Before we get to Nerdrotic, there's one more thing I want to talk about, and it looks like the good people at Fellowship of Fans are at it again. They are now reporting that they are able to confirm that Amazon has produced 3 new trailers for Rings of Power. One of those trailers well over 2 minutes long. They further report that they cannot confirm when the trailers might be released to the public, but we can speculate. If I recall, Amazon released a trailer during the World Series, which is the championship round for American baseball. They also released a trailer for Rings of Power during the Super Bowl, which is the championship match for American football. And it just so happens that the NBA Finals, which is the championship round for American basketball, is happening this week. If I were to guess, I'd say they'd put the trailer in the game that plays Sunday, June 5th, which airs just a few hours after this video releases. You want to get it in one of the early games in this series because there is no guarantee the series will last more than 4 games, and Sunday during primetime is about as good as it's going to get. That, of course, is just a guess, but an educated one at that. So finally, I want to move on and talk about Nerdrotic. More specifically, this article about Nerdrotic that comes from Bounding Into Comics. New The Lord of the Rings of Power rumor claims to reveal plot details about first episode. As you may have guessed, the rumor comes from Nerdrotic. Because we are talking about rumors, it is important to understand where the rumors are coming from. Unlike someone like, say, Fellowship of the Fans, as far as I know, Nerdrotic doesn't have the same collection of reliable inside sources. He certainly doesn't have the track record of breaking news that is later revealed to be accurate. In fact, in the past, I've made videos directly contrasting the opinions of Nerdrotic and his ilk, and I stand by every one of those videos. So why am I talking about him today? Because today I think he's right. Now, I'm going to read from the article, which is in turn a quote from one of Nerdrotic's videos. I'm not going to spoil the whole plot of the first episode, but I'll tell you right now how the episode starts. You remember Peter Jackson's epic prologue prior to Lord of the Rings that breaks down very succinctly what happened in the Second Age? And hell, even the prologue to The Hobbit is pretty good. And I'm not saying there isn't one here, but it's preceded by, and this is the very first scene, Galadriel getting bullied. That's right, Galadriel getting bullied. Does that sound like Tolkien or modern bull bleep? I'm not saying elves weren't capable of bullying little girls, even one that's going to be the most powerful of all of them, one that is royalty. Okay, now let's stop right here for a second. Although this wasn't the point I wanted to primarily talk about, I do find it interesting. I should point out that this is the only place that I've heard this rumor. However, having exchanged messages with people who have considerably more knowledge of the production than I do, no one has said that they could deny it either. Now, that doesn't really mean much. They may sincerely not know, but the primary reason why I do believe this is A, it's oddly specific, and B, Wheel of Time. In the Amazon Wheel of Time adaptation, the very first scene from the very first episode had an equally cringy scene that went completely outside the tone and vibe of the books with unmistakable modern-day narratives, exactly like is being alleged here. Although that was a minor scene, to the uninitiated viewer, it set the stage and fundamentally changed their perception of the characters that were to follow. I sincerely hope this doesn't happen to new viewers unfamiliar with Tolkien's work the same way it did happen to Wheel of Time. However, as I said earlier, this is a secondary point and not what I wanted to focus on, so let's move on to a bigger issue. I'm going to skip a little ahead. I will have a link in the description if you want to read the full article for yourself. The other two characters the show decides to focus on, besides Galadriel, over Gil-galad, Celeborn, Celebrimbor, Círdan the Shipwright, or even Elrond Half-Elven, who was called Harold Elrond in this, which is at least proper because he was the Herald of Gil-galad. Well, the second character is Elenor, or Nori Brandyfoot, the female Bilbo and Frodo. That's right, an original character. And the third character it's going to focus on is another original character, Arondir, our EOC, or Elf of Color. The implication here is that the first episode, and in my opinion likely the entire first season, is going to focus on Warrior Galadriel, a version of Galadriel not everyone is comfortable with, and two original characters instead of the rich legendarium that Tolkien left us. In fact, later in the article, Nerdrotic goes on to question how you can claim that you're respecting Tolkien when this is your plan, and in that sense, I would have to agree with him. To add on to this, and these are my words, not Nerdrotic's, the two original characters are hobbits, which absolutely nobody was passionate about when the show was announced, and an elf who's involved in a forbidden love story. Well, that was already done in the Hobbit trilogy between a dwarf and an elf, and it was the single most despised subplot in all 6 movies. If this is indeed the way the story goes, and the pictures we spoke about earlier were an accurate reflection of overall production values, it's hard to imagine this show being worthy of its predecessors or its namesake. I sincerely hope that I'm wrong. This channel isn't based on outrage farming, and I'm much more comfortable talking about things that we can be positive about. That being said, what do you think? Are we headed for a train wreck? Is my analysis off base? What do you think? Please keep your comments both respectful and civil. Also, please consider hitting that like or subscribe button, and I will see you next time.